Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fully Charged Show podcast, coming to you from two sides of the world. Me here in little old England and Elliot Richards over there in Shanghai, China. He has just been to the Beijing Motor Show. So every year, they swap between Beijing and Shanghai, these motor shows, and they are now the biggest motor shows in the world. And so he's just been to the Beijing one, which has had quite a lot of attention because of one particular phone maker, technology company that have now launched a car. I'm going to let Elliot explain what that is. And then we had to kind of sort of steer around a couple of things because obviously we're doing two shows on the Fully Charged Show about what happened in Beijing and a new car. But it's a really interesting thing. So just very briefly, a couple of years ago, the first big show, which was in Shanghai, first big motor show after COVID, was Elliot was there and he noticed it was very, very obvious that there was a lot of European, in particular, car makers, the bosses of the sort of management team and all that, were walking around the show like with their jaws open, hitting the floor because of the quality, the number, the range, the technology that the Chinese automotive industry had developed in the few years they hadn't seen anything. And I think what's interesting is it does seem to be they've kind of raised their game to try and win back some market share, because they were this is what we've been talking about for years really now, is that this is a genuine threat / challenge / opportunity. It's quite a good opportunity for European people who want cars, because the cars coming from China are really good and they're cheaper. But it's a real challenge for the old automotive industry here, and how we deal with that. I'm trying to always remain like neutral on it. I'm not saying it's good or bad. There's loads of negative sides and there's loads of positive sides. It's difficult, it's just like difficult. And that's certainly an area that Elliot and I talk about. And I just want to reiterate how lucky we are to have Elliot, to be able to do this show and have someone in China that makes shows for us that are, real insight into that huge market that's still growing at a mind-boggling rate. So I won't go on anymore. I just want to say if Harrogate show is going to be amazing. The show in Farnborough in the latter half of the year in October is looking to be the biggest we will ever have done. It's really impressive what's going on there. But before that, we're in Vancouver. My goodness, are we looking forward to that? That is going to be much bigger than last year, and really interesting stuff on display there. I have seen some of the shows that are coming in the next few weeks on the Fully Charged Show, and some really, really interesting stuff, some really good episodes in the pipeline. And so what I'd like to say is, if you haven't done so already, then if you do subscribe to this channel or use your podcast subscription app thing, click subscribe. I don't think it could be said in a worse way than that, but you know what I mean. I have I use Downcast, and I can easily subscribe to a new podcast and unsubscribe, and we all do both. But I would love it if you haven't subscribed yet, for you to subscribe, because we've got lots of really interesting people coming on to the podcast in the next few months, and there's going to be some amazing shows on the Fully Charged Show. So it's worth subscribing to those two, if nothing else. And also, I just want to mention, because we don't mention it very often, and it is an amazing resource for us, and it's what's kept us going through thick and thin. And things are not thick at the moment, they're sort of thinnish, is Patreon. Now, we have a Patreon support page, which has kind of gone up and down over the years. We've been doing it for years, but some of the people who've supported us on Patreon have been doing so for literally years. I don't know how many years now. It's probably 8 years. And that is amazing. And loads of them, it's like $2 a month. It's really a small amount, but it's significant once there's thousands of people doing it. So if you are of a mind to help us keep going and help us pay the bills, which we have plenty of, have a look at the Patreon page. The links are always in the show notes of these episodes. And that would really help us too. It would be an amazing. I haven't mentioned Patreon for probably 100 episodes, so I'm mentioning it now. But I will shut up and please welcome onto the Fully Charged Show podcast the lovely and less than hirsute Elliot Richards. Like everything electric, you'll love our fun-packed Everything Electric expos around the world.
Come join us in Harrogate, Farnborough and Vancouver.
Remember, energy and transport professionals go for free.
Elliot, welcome to the Fully Charged Show podcast. It's very good to see you. I'm very excited to hear what you've been up to, because I think normally whenever I speak to you, you've kind of seen a new car that is out in China, or you've test driven a new car, or you went to see all the bus, you've been to do things for the Fully Charged Show, and I sort of know about them. But this lot, I think it's possibly a bit of a tidal wave of new data about new cars that have come out. Where have you been a week ago yesterday?
Yeah, so thanks for having me again. I'm delighted to be here. So a week ago yesterday, I was in Beijing for the Beijing Auto Show 2024. So it's the biggest auto show they have in China. Last year it was in Shanghai. This year it's in Beijing. As they say, swap it every year because they can't pick one place to have it. So yeah, it was in Beijing. Right. I was there for the media day last Thursday, and it was in one way horrific. It was probably the most amount of people crammed into a hall that you've ever seen. It was like wall to wall people, influencers, like media. It was hot. It was very humid in there. So yeah, I mean, it's the biggest show in the world now, and there's a lot of interest in what's going on in China, because what happens there will influence what happens in EVs around the world. So yeah, it was a good experience, but I'm glad it was only one day. Right.
And that was so that the general public weren't allowed in that day. That was media only, and it was still packed.
So media day was just Thursday, and then a couple of days later was trade, and then it was open to the public, I think 4 days later.
Right.
So I think it's still open now.
I think it is. No, because I've just been checking up on it. It sounds like it's still going on. Yeah. Look, the photographs I've seen of it are just terrifying. Having been to a few motor shows, like Geneva, everyone goes, "Oh, it's really big." It looks like that's like a shed in the corner of a village in comparison with the Beijing one, is it?
And this one was smaller than the Shanghai one. So this was over something like 220,000 square meters. I can't even comprehend.
I don't even know what that means. No. It's the size of a small town, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, basically, yes.
Wow.
So,
and I mean, because I mean, obviously that is all cars, isn't it? I mean, I've just been looking. I was very, very tempted by some of the new Bentley models. I thought I might buy one of those to add to my collection.
Yeah, I mean, they've got new Bentley models coming out. They look like they would suit you very well. But I could probably tempt you into something called a Hongqi, which is the Chinese version of a Bentley. They had this wild concept there. It was about 7 meters long, like huge gull wing doors, blinged out and pimped out. And it said it was fully electric. So we shot a video there. So hopefully that will make it into the final cut. But it was
great.
A bizarre looking car. I think it was ex Rolls-Royce designers as well. It's interesting.
Wow. It's extraordinary, isn't it? So but then the one bit of news that jumped out when I wasn't even concentrating on it, I've been thinking about all sorts of other daft stuff, battery recycling. But the one thing that came out of it was the Xiaomi, who I've heard of because of phones.
Yes.
So it's a bit like BYD, but they ever made cars? Like 5 years ago, they weren't making cars.
No. So it's really remarkable. So we've all heard about Apple dilly-dallying about with making a car, right? And then we heard this year, oh no, after 10 years, we've decided not to do it. Yeah. So countless billions of dollars and man hours and, all gone down the drain. But Xiaomi started this project, I think about 3 or 4 years ago. And they only make phones, gadgets for your home, cameras, things like that. And they said, oh, we're going to jump in the EV game as well. And there's a bit of a collective sigh or collective groan saying, oh, really? Do we need another one, But the hype around that car has been insane. There was queues on the media day to get onto their stand to have a look at the cars. They only had one car. They had they had multiple models on stage, but they've only got one car out at the moment.
One design, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. But the queues were around the block. You couldn't even get into the stand. It's generating so much buzz, and luckily I managed to find myself a Xiaomi car, and I drove that one today.
Wow! Oh my God! Okay. Wow! So you're one of the very first people to have driven it, presumably. I mean, it's got to be...
So I think they've given it to Chinese media mostly at the moment, but they haven't really given it to any overseas press or media at the moment. So we've been really lucky to get behind the seat of one for about a day. I won't share too much at the moment because I want it to come out in the video later. But it's a real step in a completely different direction for electric cars, much more towards the kind of tech side. And integrates with your home. I don't want to say too much, but integrates with your home, and you just think, wow. And then you see the value for money. The top of the range one is about £30,000. The entry level one is about £20,000. Wow! And you get so much for that. 800 volt architecture, charging from.
Well, it's
10
sort
to
of
80%.
Model 3. It's kind of Tesla Model 3 sized vehicle, from what I can judge from the pictures.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, almost exactly the same as the Model 3. It's just incredible what they've packed into that one car. So review coming out very soon.
Very exciting. Wow.
Yeah, it's very cool.
But then, because the other one that was interesting, which is kind of, because we've all been, I know you have as well, slightly critical of the stance that Toyota have made, and yet they're releasing electric cars for the Chinese market, which just shows that they are perfectly capable of producing electric cars, and I'm sure they're good. The names, I mean, really. I had to write them down. I'm not sure whether I choose the BZ3C or the BZ3X. I mean, you couldn't come up with a worse. It's rubbish.
They are rubbish
names.
They are rubbish names for cars, right? Not memorable at all. Way too confusing. I think it almost sounds like something, a robot from Red Dwarf or something, right?
Yes.
I think it's.
But it would be a rubbish robot. It would be.
Yes.
It would be a really bad one.
So the really interesting thing about this show was that I felt it was the legacy brands fight back, especially Japanese brands.
Right.
So Honda showed off 3 or 4 new EVs just for the China market.
Right.
Mazda showed off a new EV, which is almost production ready for the Chinese market.
Right.
And Toyota has showed off lots of confusing named cars just for the Chinese market. So, the only way for them to survive in China is to build electric. And they've all got joint venture partners, so they can tap into the knowledge and the platforms that are already there to build cars very quickly. So the Mazda looked really nice, and it's got more than 100 miles of range, like that MX-30 which came out. You test
I test drove that in the rain,
and it's just like, this is a bit bleak, isn't it?
It looked nice, but I literally drove that out of Millbrook Proving Grounds up the road, and I went, I don't think I'm going to make it back. I better turn round. It was literally a few miles I drove it, and I went, this is not.
Yeah.
I mean, the car itself, the physicality of the car and the build quality, I mean, it was fine / good. It wasn't terrible, and you're going, oh my God, this thing's going to fall to bits. But I just went, why bother? I mean, talk about a token, it's just a token effort, really, it felt like.
So I think Beijing show has shown that they've gone, hopefully, beyond the token effort. Obviously, it's still just Chinese market only, but they can make electric cars which look good, have decent range, and come at affordable prices. They're all there. Even the German brands there, like BMW had all of their new models out. They also had their hydrogen car at the front, and I don't know why. The only hydrogen car there.
Really? Seriously, it was the only one there, and they're still.
From what I saw,
that?
I just don't understand it. It's like, guys, you're unveiling like your new electric range. You're unveiling the new electric Mini, and you stuck your hydrogen car at the front of the stand. I mean, just ridiculous. So BMW, then Mercedes had their new G-Wagon big electric
Oh, I
G-Wagon.
saw a picture of that. So that is an electric, because that really, when I was in London, I'd read about that. And then I was walking along the street in London, and a G-Wagon roared past me with the big V8 in Kensington, down a narrow street. And the smell from that one car, and that was over and above all the other cars, because he was really hammering it, because it made it does all that stuff. And I went, what the hell is that about? And I mean, the cost of driving that car in London now is astronomical.
Yeah.
It's a phenomenal amount of money you have to pay to drive it there. But he just wanted to show that he could afford it, I suppose.
So, I mean, I'm happy for Mercedes to bring this to market. You put that car up against the Chinese rivals, like all the new cars from the Chinese brand, you think, well, it's like a 40-year-old design, but they've electrified it. Fine. But it does look a bit old school compared to what the Chinese brands are putting out. Yeah. And it's kind of like, well, what is Mercedes' strategy going forwards? Where's the excitement? Where's the new cars to take on the likes of, the Zeekas and whatever else? So, I mean, I'm glad they're responding. I'm glad the legacy brands are responding and really trying to fight back. VW was the other one. But there was a lot. Yeah, so they brought out a new concept car, which was like a shooting brake or a wagon or a state, whatever you want to call it. But it was still just a concept. And they said, this design language will be used in 2026. You just think, okay, 2026, you might not be in the Chinese market because it's moving so quickly.
Yeah.
And your sales are dropping. And I think one of the big takeaways was that no one shows concepts really anymore. The Chinese brands are all showing cars which are 3 or 6 months out from coming out onto the market. As ridiculous as they look. But VW, their main thing was this concept, which looked lovely, but it's like, okay, what's next, VW? Yeah. What's coming on the market in the next few months? So it's a bit worrying.
Did they have things that I don't know what they sell in China, but did they hit things like the ID3, ID4, the bus, the minibus, all that stuff?
So we've got, we don't have the bus here, but we've got the ID3, ID4. We've also got an ID6, which is a 3-row like giant SUV thing, which is fine. It's very affordable. But there's nothing else different here that you guys don't have.
Right.
So, I mean, they just need to bring that electric Golf to the market, right?
Yeah.
Hurry up.
Or like a Polo. I mean, even I parked next to a Polo yesterday, and I went, "Oh God, look at that! That is really, that's the right size."
Exactly.
I mean, the up is. I mean, that was still one of my favorite electric cars. The VW E-Up was
I love
fantastic.
that car.
Yeah,
they just got it so right, and it doesn't have to be overcomplicated with too much technology and
God no,
big screens. So.
Well, that was the only time I can remember it really working, that you had a phone, you had an app on your phone, the VW E-Up app. Say that quickly. I've got the VW E-Up app. But that, and I had the car a week, and on the last 2 days, for whatever reason, and I'd spent hours, trying to connect it, didn't work, but suddenly it connected it, and I put it in the little holder, and it had the same amount of information as a Tesla. It was brilliantly done. So I knew my range, I knew how much energy I was using. I could use a sat nav. It was really good. It wasn't like, oh, that's a nice little, and I went, what, at least if you bought that car and you'd make that app work, it would be brilliant. That was a fantastic car. I mean, it really was. Anyway, yeah.
I think, a lot of those legacy brands got it so right at the beginning, right? VW, the E-Golf.
BMW i3.
Yeah, the i3
car. Yeah.
Even I'm going to say this, the Toyota Prius was such a solid, strong start.
Yeah.
But they all went wrong.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
They should have listened to us, Elliot. We know better.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, tell me, because that's interesting. I mean, I want to hear more about those individual ones, but were there an equal or a greater amount of new Chinese brands? Because I saw some pictures of like a BYD. I thought, well, I've never seen that. So what I've seen is a load of pictures with no explanation. So I'm guessing from the picture, that's definitely a BYD. It says on the front, and I've never seen that one before. And there was an MG. Was there a new MG of some sort?
Yes, the concept, the EXE 181.
Yes.
ridiculous.
Good, brilliant name again.
Yeah, EXE 181. Yeah,
Sir, it's the EXE 181.
yeah. They've all
Everybody
got
knows
robot
that.
names.
They are, aren't they? Yeah.
Apart from BYD, who's naming things after animals.
Yeah.
So yeah, there were a lot more releases and like new launches from Chinese brands.
Right.
There was a lot of buzz around, brands like Zeekr,
Yes.
like Smart had a new car. There was a lot of press and people interested in those new brands. The legacy brands did have a shout, but it's what are the new brands doing to take those legacy brands on? And one of the big noticeable things was I'm going to say the gimmikification of cars and design. I think before they've been relying too much on shouty headlines and ridiculous features just to grab headlines, right? To try and get people to buy this car or whatever. Yeah. I think there's a much more of a maturity coming to the market now, and they're more aligning with, I say, the legacy brands, not becoming more boring, but focusing on things that matter to people, designs that are good quality, made from sustainable materials. So it's a good shift for the market, and I think it will continue to move that way, and hopefully away from the silly designs and whatever else.
I mean, is there a move? Because that's certainly something I would love to see. Is a move to not analog, but like super pared down, simple. Well, like we were just talking about the e-up. Like, there's nothing fancy. Your phone is going to update much easier than your car. Just make it have a really good app that connects to the car. That's all you need. That is that a theme that's around?
It's hard to say. I think there's a big push from like tech companies like Xiaomi and Huawei to integrate with their ecosystem. So they want more kind of like tech in their cars, which is all mostly screen based. But I'd have to probably mention this about Xiaomi. They've got their big screen in the middle, right?
Yeah.
But then you can buy buttons as an accessory which plug into the bottom of the screen. So you can, if you're
physical buttons.
Yeah, physical buttons, and
that's actually a brilliant idea. Yeah.
So you can foresee like a third-party supplier coming in and saying, "We've redesigned the Vauxhall Cavalier buttons from the 1980s to fit your Xiaomi car." So you've got these really tactile, plasticky buttons. So there's this real, I think, push back, and especially with the new EU rules, people know it's going to go slightly more back to buttons rather than just screen. So I think they're moving away from just screen only and more into a tactile, safer environment, right?
Yeah. I mean, because it is, I did a long journey in the MG4 yesterday, and I've realized like afterwards, when I had to move our Tesla, that I press buttons in the MG a lot. So the volume, I don't even look. I do not look. I know exactly where it is. I press the button. That's too bloody loud. Turn them. It's a podcast with Elliot on. It's too noisy. Turn it down. But and then the heating on off. So easy, because it was actually quite warm yesterday when I drove back. It was really cold when I drove to where I was going. So I wanted the heating on, all those things. Oh, and I went, oh my God. Because on the Tesla, which I think the software is brilliant and it's as good as you can do with a screen. It's not to criticize that.
Yeah.
But you still got to look at it and go, oh, it's over there. Which one? Oh, how do you turn the bloody heating off?
Yeah, and I think Tesla's got their own troubles at the moment, which we won't delve too much into. But I think that whole Highland Model 3 with the no stalks for the indicators and the slidey screen, that is yes, you can get used to it, but it's not a step in the right direction.
No, I had that for a week, that car, and I really messed up with the indicator. Everything else was fine, but that. You knock it by accident all the time. So you'd have to learn to steer I'd have to learn to steer in a totally different way not to do that. And I indicated right when I was turning left off a busy roundabout. That is really not good. I don't blame other people for being upset. I got honked at because I turned left and it was saying I was carrying on round the roundabout. And that was because I'd knocked the bloody thing. I went, oh my God. Anyway, it's actually made me think I'm not going to get a Model 3 when my lease runs out. I want the BMW Neue Klasse.
Wow, that does look very good.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah. kind of BMW design going in the right direction.
Yes.
Rather than
So they did have that there, did they?
Yeah, that was there.
Right.
Yeah, it was looking very good. Obviously, huge amounts of attention around it, less so around the hydrogen car.
Well, that's weird because I've been told many times that's the future, Elliot.
Well, you've heard it here first. BMW at the Beijing Auto Show 2024. Hydrogen's the future.
Wow, because I followed a hydrogen car, BMW, in 2011 on a London to Brighton electric vehicle rally.
Okay.
It was good, did it? But that was 2011. And it was like a BMW 7 Series with lots of quite large men in it in suits and collars and ties who were sort of standing around proudly. But it was a combustion engine car converted to run on hydrogen. Massive tank. Yeah. No trunk space at all. It completely took up the back.
It's the future. I did laugh about I'm going to get off BMW in a minute because they do make a lot of good electric cars. But the tagline for the hydrogen car was beyond electric. Beyond electric. I was like, what? Really? Beyond electric? Do we need to go beyond electric? Like nuclear? I don't know. I mean, what does that mean?
Yeah, but I mean, also it is electric. I mean, it's got an electric. If it doesn't have a combustion engine, then it's an electric car. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, very funny.
Anyway, yes, but just go back quickly to Tesla. Did they had a stand there? I mean, they were a participant.
Tesla,
not at all.
Tesla were not participating at all. They weren't there. So I think, was it last year that the lady jumped on the Tesla car and had a bit of a protest? Do you remember that? She was, I can't remember why she was protesting. So she got on top of the Tesla at I think it was a Shanghai Auto Show and started protesting about the quality of her car. Massive social media scandal.
So she wasn't criticizing the philosophy of the CEO or the practices in the factory or anything like that. She was going, my car's rubbish.
Yes, basically. I mean, if she wasn't rugby tackled to the ground, maybe she would have got onto that topic. But
right.
So no, they didn't come this year. I understand why, because what would they bring that's new?
Yeah.
The Highland's been out for nearly a year now.
Probably a year. Yeah. The Cybertruck, I suppose they could, because that would be a big seller in China.
Which would never be legally allowed to be sold in China. So it's just why bother? And then you saw Elon Musk flew to China for just 24 hours.
That's right. Yeah.
Just a few days ago, right? And then it was all about him. I think it was requesting permission to open full FSD in China and transfer of data and stuff. But he was here for 24 hours, didn't visit the factory in Shanghai, literally in and out, meeting a minister, and that was it. So I don't really know what's going on because, China and Tesla have been growing a lot together, but now there's so much fierce competition that it feels like without a new car, do I want to say this? It might be the end of the road for Tesla in China in one way or another.
Wow. But I mean, the factory is still there and producing cars, presumably. I mean, that's still
they're still churning out thousands of cars a week, but they're mostly for export now.
So mostly
in fact, Tesla sales are still good in China. They're still selling multiple thousands per week.
Right.
But I just worry that at some point that will come to an end, and without something new, then the Chinese automakers will overtake them. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is that. I mean, I'm trying not to be rude about the Cybertruck because I can't be bothered. But just the timing of it and the potential boost they'd have had if they had released a smaller, cheaper, which is what they were always talking about. I mean, it's not like I'm making that up. That's what they said they were going to do. The Model 2 was going to be the smaller, cheaper car, the sort of hatchbacky type thing, which would have been amazing.
It would have been, and they would have brought new innovation, new people into their cars at a cheaper price point. And they've got, they've got the scale, they've got the vertical integration, they've got the technology to be able to do this at a cost-effective price, or you would have thought so. But they got distracted by the big shiny truck.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's move on. Before I say something I regret. So what can you? What other highlights? Because I wish I hadn't looked at those pictures now. It really didn't help me because all I saw was pictures of cars I'd never seen before, made by companies. Well, particularly when they had Chinese lettering on the number plate, then I'm screwed. I don't know what.
Oh yeah. I mean, we can talk about. So BYD had a number of new models there, and they've also got new brands. So BYD have got, is it three new brands now? Okay, so there's BYD. Wow. They had their new like hot hatch, the Ocean M.
Yes, that looked nice. Yeah, I did see that.
The bright orange one with like a body kit and big wheels, and that was very cool. It's just a model at that stage. Right. They didn't say if it was petrol or hybrid or electric, but I guarantee that will be electric.
I mean, I didn't realize BYD did any hybrids. I mean, they have done hybrids then?
Hybrids is half of their sales. So the 300,000 cars they sell a month, 150,000 of those are hybrids.
Wow.
And
no idea. Wow.
This is a little bit difficult for me because, BYD have done so much. They're, real powerhouses of, the electric revolution, right? And then they had a big announcement a few years ago saying, we're stopping making pure gasoline cars. Great. But you still make 150,000 cars with engines per month.
Right. That's quite a lot of gasoline cars.
Yeah. And, they're just about to start shipping the hybrids to the UK. And
that's right, because we haven't had them here, have we?
No. Yeah. And I thought, well, if you're going to come to the UK, just have your electric only brand or cars coming to the UK. We don't really need the hybrids, do we? Or is this still anyway, it's a bit of a confusing situation. Anyway, they had their other brands. They've got Denza, which is a co-owned by Mercedes-Benz. They have a 10% stake in Denza. It's kind of like their premium brand. I think it's all electric. They've got a big MPV. They've got a really slick, like shooting brake wagon, the Z9 GT, which is meant to be taking on the likes of BMW and Mercedes in Germany. It's fully electric, like 3 electric motors, bonkers amount of horsepower, set to come out later this year and for export. So that's Denza. Then they've got one called Yang Wang. You've probably heard of Yang Wang.
No. God.
So this is their one with their 1,000 horsepower? It's 100,000 pounds, about 120,000 pounds SUV, 1,000 horsepower. It's already on the market in China. It's very big, a little bit blingy, but that's selling very well in China and in overseas markets. Then they had their jumping supercar. They've got a supercar now. Again, about 120,000 pounds, fully electric. And they can, with the suspension, they can make it jump up and down on the spot. Absolutely no need for that. But it generates headlines and people like us talk about it, right?
It gets attention. Well, it's like, I mean, I can't remember the cultural theme, but I've seen that in Los Angeles with mainly Hispanic men in amazing old cars, and they've got the suspension.
It's exactly the same as that.
Yeah. Which was I remember seeing it and just I couldn't breathe from laughing, but they didn't seem to mind because I didn't want to upset people.
No.
And it was at an event, a street event where they're all going on, and that's so funny. But I didn't want them to think I was laughing at them and they'll then come and beat me up. But they seemed to love it. They were all waving like mad. And the guy in the car was, I mean, how he could drive with this thing. I mean, they were doing 1 mile an hour. They weren't going fast.
Are those those are the ones where they can tip the entire front in the air like 45 degrees?
Just bonkers. Or they'll drive with one wheel up, one of the front wheels off the ground, but a long way off the ground. So they'll twist the whole car up. Just, amazing. Anyway, so you can now buy a production car from China that does that.
Yeah, BYD,
really? Wow.
And then they've got their other SUV brand, which is called Fengcheng Bao, but they're all hybrids at the moment. Then they brought out an electric concept car, which has no roof. It looks very nice, So BYD dominating a lot of headlines, a lot of space at the show. Zeekr, they brought out their new MPV, which kind of very much feels like a Renault Espace, fully electric. Oh, yeah. It's got swivelly seats. I think the seats on the inside swivel round from the front. Right. It's a decent size. It's probably going to be a decent price. It's Zeekr. It looks great. That's a very exciting car because, as you know, Zeekr are coming to Australia. They're coming to Europe. They're already in the Netherlands. They're coming to the UK, I think, next year. So they're one brand to really watch out for. Obviously from the Geely group.
Yeah.
And then just look at my notes. The Smart, Smart.
Oh yeah.
So Smart, we know Smart as the small, innovative car maker who bought those really great city cars out.
Yeah.
Very safe. Yes, they were petrol, but what a great innovation.
Yeah.
But with their new Geely daddy in the house, they've gone bigger, they've gone wider, they've gone SUV, and they bought a new one called the #5, which is this big off-road SUV, like with padding and aggressive wheels and, really going to attack the Arctic tundra in a smart car. So they're going in a very different direction, which is fine. All brands need to change to survive. And it's getting a lot of people upset. They're like, this is not a smart car. Smart car should be small. But it looked good. It looked interesting. I'm sure either myself or Jack will drive that one maybe later this year or next year. So, all of the Geely brands are bringing out new cars. There wasn't, I think it's noticeable this year, there wasn't really a big shock moment, this brand's brought out this car. Whereas last year in Shanghai, it was all about the shock moments. This year was all about confidence and consolidation, I think. Right.
God, it does. I mean, it must, because I've been to about half a dozen of them in my life, the big car shows, and they are, my main memory of it is like just looking for floor space to sit down. Rest, it's just, I walked, my step count was in the hundreds of thousands, from.
Yeah, that's about
so that
right.
must have been.
Yeah. And even just trying to film, because there's so many media there, so many influencers there, and the influencer landscape here in China is very different from back home. So lots of young people there literally shouting at their screens as they're live streaming, but then there's 10 of them doing the same thing around the car, and they've got all these messages going flying across their screen. They're shouting and they're shouting, and then all of a sudden it stops. So I finished now. I'm gonna go home. It was a very bizarre experience, and then you're there trying to say, "Oh, sorry, can I just squeeze in and try and get a bit of a wide angle on this car and speak really quickly because someone's going to walk in front of the camera in a minute." Yeah. So, always a bit of a struggle, but it just shows how much interest there is in this market.
Yeah. And would you say? That's because I'm intrigued. I should know. I feel that it's revealed my levels of ignorance about BYD. I really do. I just have and I've now feel bad the amount of times I've said, look, the reason BYD are making good cars is because they're a battery company that are now making cars. They were never a car company that have gone, let's put some electric batteries in our old petrol cars. I had no idea they did that. But that thing, the hybrid, the amount of times I'm hearing that at the moment from the general public, from people I meet. It seems like hybrids are the way forward, as a commonly heard team. And I go, no, that's fine. That's a petrol car with a lot of extra bits and bobs on, which is fine. Get one. That's fine.
Go ahead.
I no longer try. But then I do say, is it okay then? From what you're saying, it's okay that we continue to extract and import expensive, toxic fossil fuel. If that's okay, then let's carry on. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's a really tricky one, right? So
yeah, it is. Yeah.
A lot of us started with hybrids, right? I know.
Yeah, I did, definitely. Yeah.
I think they have a place, right? I think if you can just go straight to EV, go straight to EV. If you're not comfortable with that, go to hybrid first, but you'll very quickly think, electric mode is so much better, but damn, I've got a tiny battery and I can drive 50 miles. So, my next upgrade in 3 years, I'll get pure electric.
Yeah.
But there's a few arguments here. So I spoke to one of the car companies who only make hybrids, and they said, what happens is everyone gets in these cars because they want the safety and the security of lots of range. They have this myth in their head that that's what they need and they have the security of a petrol engine, which gives them, thousands of miles without needing to go to the toilet. But what they find is that after just a few months, those buyers are like, well, we drive 99% in pure electric mode. We prefer pure electric mode. So when are you going to bring us your next pure electric model? Because that's what we want. So
That is it. Wait a minute. So this is a company that only makes hybrids. Saying
Yes,
this.
and they told
Wow.
me that for them, it's getting people into this experience of driving an electric, and then they realize very quickly that petrol is expensive. It's not good for the environment. It doesn't feel very nice.
Yeah.
The other side is there's cars now like the Xiaomi with CATL's like top battery. It's called the Kirin battery, which promises close to 1,000 kilometers of range. Obviously, that's on a very generous measurement, the CLTC, the Chinese measurement of.
But I mean, even if it's 850 kilometers of range, it's pretty impressive.
And then, so it's 850 kilometers. Maybe it's 650 in the real world.
Yeah.
But then you can charge that in 19 minutes from 10 to 80%. 19 minutes.
Yeah.
And there's cars now which do that in 10 minutes. So as soon as you have cars that can do that, as soon as the charging and the batteries are up to spec, then you don't need these hybrids. I mean, hybrids are a gateway drug into the world of electrification.
I suppose. So I was a junkie, a hybrid junkie.
Exactly.
25 years ago. That's the trouble. I sort of, to me, it feels like really dated technology. It was brilliant when it came out in the early noughties. When I first went in a Prius, it was game changing. Absolutely. Because I've always looked back at that time, and it took me a while to work it out. But I had a ride in an electric test bed supercar, ridiculously fast thing, I think in 2002. And I wasn't impressed. I mean, I wasn't thinking, oh my God, I was impressed with the fact that it went that quick.
Yeah.
It was on a drag strip, but it was wooden box in the back with a load of laptop batteries. I mean, it was literally that. Anyway, but then I was given a lift, I think that year or the following year, in a Prius, like a regular car. And when it moved off from traffic lights late at night, there was no engine, and it was just a most weird experience. And that had a much greater effect on me personally. And I sold a stupid petrol car and traded it in for a Prius.
Yeah.
Which I would never, and Toyota, I didn't even know that Toyota, I just was not aware of it. I knew Volkswagen and Aston Martin. Those are the two, and Land Rover. That's what, I didn't have an Aston Martin, but I used to look at them.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a means to an end.
It is. I guess it is. I mean, I shouldn't be as impatient as I probably am with people who've, either never had a car in some cases, or never, or only had petrol cars, and they're trying to make a difference. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think what's going to happen is we're going to see the ban of petrol or hybrid cars in cities, within a few years. I think so. In Shanghai, they've now stopped giving hybrids, any hybrids, so any car with a gasoline engine, even if it's got batteries, they don't get the free green number plate anymore. So it's only pure EVs now. So they've already started. Before they did, but now it's you have to have a pure EV to get the free number plate to drive in Shanghai. So
and if you have to buy a number plate, they're expensive.
It's about £10,000.
Because when people moan about the ULEZ in London. Yeah, well, here you go. Yeah, you can drive. Yeah, yes. Sadiq Khan announces you can drive into London in your petrol car for £10,000. Yeah. I think there would be a headline in the Daily Mail.
Exactly, one or two headlines. But at that point, it's like, well, I can get a VW Golf at 20 grand, but then you're going to spend another 10 grand for the number plate.
Just be able to drive it.
Yeah, get it.
Yeah.
So,
and so you actually your number plate is free. There's no charge for it if you've got a pure electric car.
No charge at all, and I can drive anywhere I want in Shanghai, which is which is great. There was one other thing I wanted to just mention about the Beijing Auto Show, because it was very interesting. I mean, what's your impression of a general CEO of an automotive company outside of China? What do you think they're like?
Oh, always. The ones I've seen talk are quite tall, annoyingly slim. They have really good hair. They're usually German, and they speak exquisite English, Italian, French, Spanish, and German. and they look really happy, and they smell gorgeous. So when I've met them and shaken hands with them, I go, oh God, he smells really nice.
But it's very, very difficult to reach that stratosphere, even just to talk to them. Right? They're very far away.
It's very rare that
not the Chinese CEOs of these electric car companies are very different. They were all at the show, and they were all going onto each other's stands. So the Xiaomi CEO went onto the Neo stand, and they had a chat, and there was all the press around them. Then they all went onto the BYD stand and had a chat.
But this was like when they were visiting. It wasn't just to go and see their mates. They were doing a kind of talk. And
No, it was to just go and show support to the other brands, because they're very much all in this together. These brands, they know, they're all going through this electric revolution, and they all want to support each other. So a lot of these CEOs are friends. They'll drive each other's cars. They'll even buy each other's cars as a gesture of, this is a good company. We want to support you, so we will buy your car. It's very interesting. You'd never see a VW exec going and buying a GM car, for example, or even just having
So that tall, slim man who smells nice with really good hair. So all the things I'm jealous about wouldn't be seen dead. So if he was from Volkswagen or BMW, he wouldn't be seen dead in a Mercedes or an Audi or anything else. A Ford, would be. No, they all hate each other.
Exactly. So it's very refreshing to see that they're there supporting each other in this industry, and
it's really
happy to be seen on each other's stands. And there was even a point where the Neo CEO went to the Lotus stand, because Lotus have just announced they're going to be part of battery swapping. So Neo have the battery swapping, right?
Oh, so if you've got a Lotus in China, you can use the Neo battery swap.
Yeah, so I think at some point there'll be a possibility that you can swap your battery in a Lotus,
right?
Which is outstanding. So he was on the Lotus stand giving a speech at Lotus's press day. The CEO of Neo. It's very different environment here, and it's very refreshing to see cooperation, because we're all, at the end of the day, we're all doing this to try and not prevent climate change, but slow it down. And, that's what we're all trying to do. And I think that's, at the end of the day, that's the mission.
Quality and all,
that's the mission of all of these guys. Obviously, they want to sell a load of cars, but they're also, trying to save our planet. So I think it's nice to see that kind of refreshing difference between Western CEOs and Chinese CEOs.
Yeah. No, very different. So there weren't any BMW CEO, or I was wondering whether he sees that and goes, "Oh, I better go and be nice to the man at Neo."
Not really. They were there, but they didn't really make a big gesture to go onto their stage, and
Right.
I mean, a lot of the German automakers always go around the show, in their clean, slick suits and their slick back hair, and having a look at the Neos, having a look at the Xpengs, and
right.
So they always do that, but none of that congeniality.
Right, because I do remember you saying that was, I suppose, probably was that the Shanghai one, which was the kind of first big auto show after the COVID stuff, where you did see this sort of group of shocked-looking Europeans
and Japanese.
Right, and Japanese, yes,
all wandering around with a sullen face, looking, oh dear, we really messed up. How are we going to report this back in the boardroom? Oh God.
Yeah. But it sounds a bit like then this year they've kind of gone, we better make an effort.
Yeah.
And
I suppose we should make an electric car or two, just to appease a few people. But yeah, they kind of showed their cards this year, which was nice.
Right. Yeah. Because the other thing I wanted to know is was there any displays of peripheral stuff that didn't have wheels, like vehicle to grid stuff, home stuff, like we do at the Fully Charged shows, everything electric shows. Sorry, I've just remembered that.
Yes, so they have these halls outside of the main halls, which are kind of, it was mostly to do with tech around self-driving, so a lot of self-driving tech companies.
Yes.
And then they had a whole other exhibition center downtown Beijing for that kind of thing. I didn't visit there. I didn't have the time. That's where those sorts of things were displayed. There were a few other concepts at the show which didn't have wheels. Well, had wheels, but were more focused on flying. So Xpeng had their flying car there, which was this monstrous thing, absolutely gigantic thing, which had these huge wings which fold out. And they're telling me they have a working prototype, which is a little bit ugly looking, but then this was the kind of like the designed model on the stand. So there's still a big push into UAVs and flying cars. So there was that on display, but Beijing show was a bit smaller, so they only really displayed their cars at the show.
Right.
And there weren't actually that many small cars at this show. It was very much focused on bigger SUVs, bigger cars, you know. So that was, that was interesting. Shanghai had everything, every small car, every big car, everything.
Right.
This was a bit more focused.
So Shanghai was bigger than Beijing then? Last year
much bigger, unfortunately.
Oh, right.
It was unmanageably big.
Yes.
So it ran out of time.
Right. But that, because I just wonder whether that is, I can't remember if we've spoken about this before. If we have, I'll load more shame onto my shoulders. But about the vehicle to grid element, because I've just been to a couple of sessions at conferences here recently where that was quite a big topic now, that sort of becoming a thing. But there's not, I guess it's pretty, because the Chinese grid's going to be different. It's not that you can't really,
to be honest, I don't know huge amounts about vehicle to grid in China, but it's a very different situation here because a lot of the charging we do is, at charging stations. Not many people have their own chargers at home. You're very lucky to even have a parking space. So the V2G thing is a bit further behind, which is why we haven't seen much innovation, as far as I'm aware, from China in that respect. I've seen V2L, V2V, V2, all the other ones.
Yeah, because I remember you were cooking from I can't remember which car it was.
BYD Dolphin, I think,
BYD. But actually, there's quite, my MG will do. I can do that with my MG. I haven't got the adapter. I should get it and go and cook something up the garden.
It's great fun. So there, as far as I'm aware, there isn't that much V2G. I'm sure there is a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, but it's I think the development there is actually happening in Europe and the UK much quicker than it is here.
It's also talked about in America because the American grid is constantly collapsing. I.e., you get power cuts at your house, and so that's become a very attractive, counter to that. You have your Ford F-150 Lightning that runs your house for a month. Actually, it can run the whole town.
Or the Hummer.
But that aspect of it was incredibly popular. And I'm assuming then the Chinese grid's fairly stable. It's not constantly.
It is now. They've built most of the grid out in the last 20 or 30 years, so it's relatively new, right? And
what about, was there any commercial vehicles? It does sound like it was all big flash cars. There weren't any commercial vehicles, vans, trucks, buses, that sort of stuff.
Did I see? They might have been tucked away in the corner and I didn't see them, but no, there wasn't a huge commercial vehicle zone. No, it's very much focused on the passenger vehicle.
But it sounds like, and it was very much focused on upmarket, middle class.
Yeah, even Wuling, who make that amazing mini EV, they didn't even bring any of their small cars there.
Wow.
They bought their new sedan. It's an affordable electric sedan. It's about £10,000, but they didn't bring any of their small cars. Yeah, which was a shame.
But that's it. So that may say quite a lot about the actual market in Beijing. I'm wondering whether that is the sort of is Beijing the wealthiest city in China? I don't know.
Gosh, it's one of the top 3 wealthiest. They might actually have the most billionaires. I think Beijing might have the most billionaires in Beijing as compared to Shanghai and Shenzhen in the south. I think it changes all the time, but there's a lot of billionaires. But the EV penetration rate is probably, out of the 3 big cities, is probably the lowest. So Shenzhen is about 65% EV penetration rate. Shanghai is 40. I think Beijing's 25 to 30%. So they're a little bit further behind. So
wow. But then so don't spoil anything. But was the Xiaomi? Say Xiaomi. Is that the best way of saying it?
Yeah, Xiaomi.
Was the Xiaomi? Was it quite nice to drive? I know. Okay, then don't, because you're going to spoil. Because I'm sure the show. As I haven't seen the footage yet, so I'm looking forward to it.
Let me just give you these stats. It has 670 horsepower.
Oh my God.
838 newton meters of torque and does 0 to 60 in 2.78 seconds on a car that's £30,000.
And do you think it really, that acceleration speed is plausible?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It's very much so. It's
wow.
I mean, I won't give too much away, but it's not perfect. But as a first go from a phone maker, wow,
yes,
wow, just wow. I'll leave it at that.
I think I now want to write a science fiction story where British Telecom bring out a car.
That is a great idea.
It's set in the 1970s. It's science fiction that goes back in time rather than forward. And BT have decided to move into the automotive market.
Can you imagine it?
And then, because the sort of early jokes about electric cars, you need a long cable. This particular car, you did. It had to be plugged in all the time. You could drive 100 meters non-stop because then you stretch it, drive past where it's plugged in, unplug it, walk to the next one.
And then you have to plug it in the next traffic light before the light goes green.
Yeah. Oh, that is amazing, though, isn't it? Isn't that weird? I mean, the thing is, I guess they're not poor, so they just hired really good people who can make. I mean, that is the thing. I just want to quickly say I've met about 4 people this year from the automotive. So I met a couple in London at the Everything Electric show. He said without any hesitancy, who had worked. One of them had worked in China for 8 years.
Yeah,
and previously worked for Aston Martins and before that for JLR. And he said, I said, it must have been a big job with your family and everything. He said, well, yeah, we managed to adjust. I was paid obscenely well.
Yes.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Because you somehow don't think, if you go to the Emirates and you're a builder, I've known that people who were like house builders in London who built parts of Dubai and got paid stupendous amounts of money. So you kind of understand that. But I somehow don't think of Western automotive people going to China and getting paid really well.
I mean, it's much less with the engineering space now. I mean, what can we teach the Chinese about electrification?
Yeah, exactly. Or manufacturing. Yes.
Not a great deal, to be honest. But design, we export a lot of designers from the UK and Europe to China. So I think almost every brand at the show now has a European or UK design studio. They were all there as well. MG's got a design centre in the UK. There's a lot of design centres in Berlin for the Chinese brand.
I've been to the MG design. It's beautiful. It's stunning. It's an amazing room. Yeah, it's like being in an art college. It's really exceptional.
That sounds fun.
It's incredible sculptures and paintings on the wall and everything. Very cool place. Yeah.
And so, design is obviously something which obviously very subjective, but it's the area perhaps where Chinese designers are less mature at the moment. I mean, they'll catch up very quickly, but
yeah, I'm sure. Yeah,
if they want to attract a European audience, a European market, because a lot of these brands are going to Europe, they need to make them slightly more European in their looks, in their interior space. So I think that's what they're doing at the moment, and you see a lot of foreign car designers in Shanghai at the moment.
Right. Wow,
getting paid a lot.
Yes. That's as good. I think without giving anything away, because there's going to be there's going to be an episode which we're working on as we speak.
Yeah,
it's being edited about the auto show, and then the Xiaomi test drive.
Yes,
is very exciting. So I don't want to spoil those. But other than that, Elliot, I just want to say thank you, because that has been a brilliant overview and a flavour of it. And I can hear in the background a young man getting active. On cue.
On cue, right? Just in time. There you go. I'll be there in a minute. Wait 1 minute. There you go.
No, I could tell. I could feel the tension building up in the background. I think
he's been shouting "Daddy" for about 10 minutes.
Oh, has he? I occasionally heard a little bit of noise.
Yeah,
okay,
that'll be him.
But thanks for taking the time, Elliot. It's been really good to catch up, and I know we'll see you soon. I can't think where, but I know somewhere
around the world.
Somewhere around the world we'll hook up. But for now, thanks very much, and keep keep observing what's going on in China. It's been such a privilege for us, little Brits over here, to have you there. So it's been amazing, and your shows are just fantastic.
Thank you very much. Good. Glad I can share that part of Chinese life with the audience.
Yes, very good. All right, we will catch up very soon. You take care.
Thank you.
Really hope you enjoyed that. I'm not going to talk about subscribing or anything. We've done all that. I hope we see some of you at our live shows. If you can come along, they're always a really good fun. Family day out, no question. Brilliant stuff for kids at these. More and more stuff for kids. A lot of stuff about cooking, a lot of stuff about home energy, not just cars, but loads and loads of test drives with amazing cars from all over the world. We really hope we see you there. Please do come back and hear another podcast in the near future, next week, actually. And as always, if you have been, thank you for listening/watching.